Thanks ever so much, Miriam, for the presentation and for inviting me. I'm going to try and speed through this as quickly as possible. So today I want to focus on some research that I've been doing on Spanish-Moroccan musical exchanges, particularly focusing on the city of Granada. Now, Granada is well known for the somewhat sort of mythic construction, utopian construction of so-called convivencia, the alleged cultural coexistence of Jews, Christians and Muslims in medieval Spain, or Al-Andalus. It's become a sort of source of local identity for some within the city, and also it's very much part of the tourism industry. But this history is also claimed by another group in Granada, most namely the Moroccan community. And parts of the Moroccan community have sort of taken advantage, you might say, of this history and their place within it, and particularly through the tourism industry. And some anthropologists have sort of argued that they carve out a space for themselves and built on this legacy of Al-Andalus. Now, a number of cultural projects have emerged in recent years that emphasise this convivencia legend, often as a way of trying to promote the integration of Moroccans. And I do say trying here, the ability for them to do that is somewhat dubious sometimes. But music has become quite an important part of this process. And in particular, I've been focusing on so-called flamenco-Andalusi fusions, where flamenco, the music and dance tradition of Spain, most well known, and Arab Andalusian music, which is believed to have originated in Al-Andalus and now exists in Morocco and other parts of the Maghreb and Levant. These two traditions are viewed as sort of byproducts, you might say, of Al-Andalus, even if in reality they're actually quite disjunct, and they've been brought together in various ways. Now, beyond the sort of somewhat utopian and you might say dubious basis for these fusions, I'm actually more interested in the lives of the musicians themselves and how music making might facilitate social interactions between both Spaniards and Moroccans. So today I want to focus on some research I've done with Souhail Sakhini, who moved to Granada in the 1980s. And he's become one of the most well-known musicians in this particular fusion scene. And he's quite an interesting case because he's very well integrated in the sense that he's lived in Granada for 30 years, he speaks the language Spanish fluently, he has dual citizenship, but he still feels like he is othered as a Muslim, as a Moroccan, as an immigrant within Spanish society at large. And in the context of recent spikes in Islamophobia, in racism towards the Moroccan community, his music is particularly interesting. I think it's interesting because it's often constructed by the media, by institutions, as a safe form of difference. And I say safe because his own sense of a Moroccan identity is made compatible, shall we say, with the discourses that exist in Andalusian society at large. Now, one of these is the idea of Andalusian regionalism. Now, not only is the convivencia legend part of Granada per se, it also belongs to a bigger idea of Andalusian regional identity, the southern region in Spain. And Al-Andalus is often seen as a sort of golden age of this particular region and is often promoted by cultural and governmental institutions. And Souhail, in many respects, sort of taps into this partly through his knowledge and performance of flamenco itself, which is seen to be the sort of regional music of Andalusia. He gains, and by sort of gaining competence in this regional music, Souhail is afforded a certain degree of what we might say cultural capital, where I mean he has an ability to engage with Andalusians on their own musical terms, shall we say. He also foregrounds in his music the promotion of regional history in various institutional projects, particularly in education contexts, where he teaches often Andalusian school children their own regional history, and he does this through music. Now, another way in which Souhail has sort of benefited from the convivencia legend in his music is through the notion of so-called interculturalism. And he often packages his music himself as so-called intercultural dialogue, and such benefits from institutional projects. Now, in Andalusia, this history is often sort of co-opted as a model for contemporary interculturalism. And Souhail's musical exchange is useful here because it's built on the reconciliation, you might say, of distinct cultural traditions, Moroccan and Spanish, through the framework of a shared history. And for example, he was involved in this project, Flamenco de Orilla a Orilla, flamenco from shore to shore, where flamenco and its fusions with Arab Andalusian music were promoted in both Morocco as a form of cultural diplomacy, but also within Spain itself, allegedly to promote the integration of Moroccans. And this is a statement here from the Andalusian Department of Migratory Policies that sort of illustrates this. and Flamenco de Rio Rio raise awareness and exchange amongst the indigenous population and Moroccans resident in Andalusia so that they can identify with flamenco culture is of utmost importance to facilitate and promote a process of mutual understanding between Andalusia and Morocco that benefits the integration of Moroccan residents in Andalusia without renouncing their origins. However, Suhail himself notes the limited capacity of these projects to reach their aims. And this is one of the things I'm trying to sort of explore. Now, he acknowledges that these fusions, these projects are a way to raise awareness of the Moroccan community, or to sensibilizar, as it says in Spanish. But these projects actually rarely reach Moroccan communities. And even more critically, you could argue that they sort of obscure some of the unequal power relations between Spaniards and Moroccan immigrants in the region. But beyond these sort of institutional politics, Suhail does view his own music making as a way of, to quote, convive, to live with Andalusians, despite these sort of utopian ideals of convivencia, which he is actually quite critical of. He still ultimately sees these fusions as a space for human interaction, at a grassroots level, and I will stop there.